All right, what's up? My name's Michelle.
And I'm Alondra.
Welcome to our
So it's going to be
podcast.
another long night. Another long night for sure. So let's talk about Amber Heard because I just heard some bizarro news. I mean, this was bizarro news. I don't know if you heard the same news I heard. So supposedly, Amber Heard's attorneys are going to ask for there to be a mistrial because one of the jurors what they said they were. In other words, that they posed, they lived in the same household as the individual who was supposed to be on jury duty, had the same address, but showed up. So like not the person who was called to jury duty. And so there was this lady explaining it that they don't always check if they didn't check for IDs. There is a strong possibility that the person that wasn't supposed to be on the jury showed up in lieu of the person who should have shown up to be on jury. So case of different people living in the same household, they must have switched. I wonder if somebody said, hey, I don't want to go to jury duty. Go ahead and pose as me. I don't know. But I thought that was pretty bizarre. I mean,
I thought they had
it's
the
good
same
grounds. We'll
name,
see what happens. Something like that.
but like there was no junior or senior or something like that on there, or something like that.
Something like that. So now she's asking for a mistrial.
But the crazy thing is, they
I don't
got to
know.
do a voir dire for all of those jurors.
Yeah, they
They
did. They
looked
did.
at
Yeah,
all
they
of that
did.
information. They questioned them and all of that. So it's like, I think that they both sides knew that and they held on to that information. So if shit did not go their way on the result, they would have something to throw out and be like, we want a mistrial. I think both sides did that.
I just at this point they've had their time in court. They've wasted taxpayers' money. Johnny Depp's reputation has been cleaned up. He's working again. Supposedly he's going to be on the new Pirates of the Caribbean, even though he said that he wasn't going to.
Well, he wouldn't for 300
So
million, but they gave him 301 million. So that made the difference.
can you can you imagine the amount of money? Okay, so I'm watching Dark Knight. This is so off on a weird tangent. So I'm watching Dark Knight, Batman. I think it's Batman Dark Knight, and it's I can't remember what the actor's name. It was not. He's a serious actor.
Not
Let me
Pattinson,
look him
right?
up. No, 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 no.
The one
He,
before Pattinson.
yes, it was. Gosh, what is he? Batman. What is that actor's name? No, it was before Pattinson. There you go, Christian Bale.
Okay.
Christian Bale. And the movie's Batman is cheesy. I think it is. I thought it was just kind of like really just weird. It was my cup of tea. I don't really like those. But I will say this: like he takes his acting so seriously, even if it's a cheeseball movie like The Dark Knight, right? I mean, when you think about the amount of money these guys get, that's life-changing money. I guess if I was getting paid millions of dollars to play the Dark Knight in this cheesy movie, I would probably have this certain serious and level of professionalism, even though I think it really does nothing for society as a whole except provide entertainment, but but I mean, that amount of money for Johnny Depp, I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Well, they know that's nothing.
There
That's a
was
drop in the bucket now because all of the publicity right now, they know that more people are going to watch Pirates this time than probably ever before. So
for sure, because
301
they want to
million
see
is
him
a
again.
drop in the bucket.
I think his role in Pirates of the Caribbean is equivalent of Keanu Reeves Matrix movies. You know what I mean? Like these like huge blockbuster movies. Like that is like if somebody's gonna think about Keanu Reeves, they're gonna think of The Matrix. Somebody thinks of Johnny Depp, you think of Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean,
That
it's
or
just
Alice, yeah,
those. Yeah,
or
that
Willy
or
Wonka. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I think
he's
of all
in
kinds of
Alondra,
movies.
Scissorhands. But that role really put him on the map. Did he win some sort of award for that role?
Oh, I have no idea about that one.
But so much money. That's like life-changing money. I can't even like imagine being, it only, I would say it knows, in order for you to be wealthy, considered wealthy in Dallas, you have to have $2.6 million.
That's
2
it.
point, and Johnny Depp's getting 300. Yeah, I thought that was low. 2 2.6 million is what I've read. It was one of those lists. How accurate that list is and how they make that determination, I have no idea. Um. So yeah, it was one of those like lists. It only takes 2.6 million to be considered wealthy here in Dallas, but Johnny Depp's getting 300 million. I mean, what do you do with all that money?
And he just
Like, I'm sure he's
raised
very generous. Just
800. He just raised like 800,000 for the hospital, children's hospital in California.
the man just keeps on giving. He's very. It seems like he's very generous, and just kind of just 300 million, and now he's just like playing with his band. I'm sure if you're either really good friend or family, like he'll take care of you. Like I don't think he'll
Well,
miss you
clearly,
unless he
I
just
mean,
that
look
one
what he
like
did
that's
for all her friends, and plus his friend that he moved in, and then, I mean, he's done a lot.
300 million dollars. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, Amber and her team want to file. They're saying the insurance company is saying that they're not paying up because you know how they said that she was going to use her home insurance. Apparently, you can use
Right.
home insurance when you get sued. Yeah.
If it was if it was malicious or whatever, yeah, then you can't use it.
Well, that's what they're saying. The insurance
Yeah.
is basically, insurance doesn't like to pay for stuff like that. They were like going to be like, look, this is malicious. You lied. I can't afford to give you. Well, they can't afford them, but they don't want to pay um, what she's going to owe.
Yeah.
Money. It's a lot of money. But anyway, this is just ongoing. Um, I just hope it's over. I think it's ended. Like I don't think anything more than I don't think it'll go to trial again. Yeah, I don't say. She's crazy enough, you know. And I don't mean that like she's wild enough. Let me use that word instead of crazy. She's wild enough to want to try this thing again. Prove her point.
Yeah, which is crazy
Prove that she's
because, I mean, it's all out there, and supposedly she's got some $15 million book deal or some shit. But that's crazy. If some book place decides to publish that book, like, you're playing with fire. You're playing with fire because she's
Oh
already been
yeah.
found guilty of not being honest, and I mean, not found guilty, but I mean, they said it was with malice or whatever. So I mean, you'd be crazy to publish a book from her and
She's a
not worry
liability
about
for
getting sued.
sure. For sure, she's a liability. But I would love to. I mean, I would love to read her memoir. Like I would read it. I want to know
It's all
what's up
fake.
through her head. Like,
It's all
well,
fake.
I mean, yeah, but she does have an interesting like backstory. So what I heard now, I don't know if this is true or not. Allegedly, she she was driving and her best friend got killed while she was driving, which led her to kind of like spiral and kind of like live life to the fullest. Then she went to Hollywood and met all these people. I mean, I would want to hear the story of Amber Heard, even even if she lied. I think that if you her story is tell Like she's got some interesting tidbits. She has a baby. She hasn't announced who the father is. People think it's Elon Musk. So I think she has a story there other than Johnny Depp. That would be a big, I'd sell her story to Lifetime. I'd be like, I'm gonna sell my story to
Yeah,
Lifetime
but like, what
or
about her
something.
story
I
is
mean, she could have
true?
said,
Because she's talked about her parents basically not having money to put her through school, but then she's told other interviewers that she was lucky enough to have her parents save for her to be able to go to college afterwards. Like, she's got so many conflicting stories, like her talking about that she didn't even really know who Johnny Depp was, but then I think it was her mother or something, said she had pictures of Johnny Depp as a teenager all over her wall, and like what's real?
yeah, she's fine. It's, I mean, it makes like a good story like Anna Nicole did. You know what? Like, just she's so controversial. I mean,
No,
even though in her mind,
she's, to me, she's full of
I
shit.
think
Like, I would not read it. I
I
would
think
not give a fuck.
I I would read it. I think she's controversial. She's controversial, the things that she says, and I just wanted to hear about the bizarre things she says. Who knows what would be in that book? But to your point, she's too much of a liability. Would have to like she would have like the chapter would be to Johnny, and then it would be all blank because she can't really talk about it, right? Like it wouldn't be something that she talk about. Um, but yeah, I do find how and then just the way she turns into the person, like whoever she's dating, she really invests time and effort into getting to know that person. Kind of like those women, I
Stock
don't know if
wise,
there was
yeah,
just this crime. Yeah, the women. You know which one? There was one that was all like, she killed her husband. I don't equate her, but I'm just saying about this lady. Um, they turn into the women, like the women that their men want. They study. Okay, he likes this. Okay, and then they become like, you know, I'm gonna cook for you. She doesn't know how to, I'm gonna massage your feet. Like everything that you want that would be in an ideal man's dream, these women become,
yeah.
and then and they become that, they end up killing them for their insurance money. Like that that happens. That happens. It was on the can't remember who the lady is, but one of those women who those shows when they do the true crime,
Like
love
true crime,
hurts,
yeah.
and then they have all these like true crime. So yeah, I think that's interesting. Uh, but we shall see what becomes of her. I think she burned her bridges. I don't think anything's going to become of her. I think Elon Musk is probably going to continue subsidizing her lifestyle.
Something. Maybe she's blackmailing him on something. I don't know.
Yeah, because we don't know who the pappy is of the baby.
I mean, it sounds like him. He's I don't know. They had embryos
He's
together
not.
already.
I don't. You know what? This is a man who's like if a man offers you his sperm, like Elon is offering women, like if he likes you just a little bit, he's like, you have a kid. Then the lady's all like, you know what? I'm not married. I'm in my late 30s. Sure.
Well, he has a
I mean, it
type
seems like
for
he's
sure.
giving it up.
Like he's what's weird and it's really turning me off. I've always been a huge Elon fan, but like with everything lately, it's almost like Epsteinish, because he has this whole like eugenics thing going on. He finds these women that are incredibly smart. He has embryos with them, has surrogate babies. I mean, like he just had those twins with one of his company
Yeah,
execs.
I did. Yeah.
And then he's got the two kids with Grimes, who I don't know if you've ever listened to some of her interviews. A lot of people think she's dumb, but she's really, really smart. Um, some of the ideas that she has are very interesting and eclectic, but very smart.
She seems like she's on the spectrum in a way. Like I don't know if she
The
is or not
spectrum, I would,
because
yeah,
it's
she
just
seems like it for sure.
yeah, yeah, like but I have heard her speak, and you have to put what she says into context, because I think what people like to do right now, and I think it's a habit, they like taking tidbits of things and then just playing that one tidbit and not putting the whole thing into context. And when you listen to her, you can't, like, if you make a statement, like if she makes a statement, you have to look at in what context she's making the statement. It's like when
Mhm.
you're talking about a certain period of time, right? You can't view it through the same lens as you view it now, because
Right.
societal norms were different. So I think with her, people become. I mean, it's okay. I am no Sarah Palin fan, but when she said, "Hey,
I
to
can
see
see Russia
Alaska,"
from my
I
house.
remember people were laughing. They were like, "Ah,
Right.
ha, ha, ha."
But she
Yeah,
could.
she can.
Yeah.
She could. She could. I mean that there, and she could. People were making fun of that, making fun of her for that. But again, people don't take time to do the research. They don't take time to look at things in context. And honestly, to defend people in general, they don't have time to do. Like, I hear a lot of folks throw statistics at me, throw numbers at me, throw all these things at me, but I don't have time to sit down, like, do the research to say, okay, because when it comes to statistics, there's a lot of questions you need to ask. Is it the mean? Is it the average? Because average and mean are two different things. Did you remove outliers, or did you keep
Right.
the outliers in your data? Because that can totally sway your data.
Oh yeah,
And it
absolutely.
takes
Yeah.
so much to, like, go in and do all of the research. I see why people were laughing when she would say, "Yeah, I can see Russia from my house," when she really could, is because they didn't know any better.
Yeah, it's
And
because
I think that's the same
they
thing
don't know
with,
the world
go
map.
ahead.
Because they don't know the world map and they
Yeah,
didn't
but it's
really
just,
learn geography. Yeah.
no. And so with Grimes, like, I can see people, like, when she says things, they don't take it into the context. I remember that she said something and people came at her on the internet, and then she had to put it into context. Well, this happened and this happened, and it was just, she had to explain herself. So yeah, I don't think she's stupid. No, but I just found it very interesting that Elon Musk has this whole, um here's the thing. You can try to be eugenics and do all this whole eugenics thing as best you could, but you're gonna get what you're gonna get when it comes to kids. Like, if the genes are there, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. Like, for example, let's say that you're tall, both of you guys are 6 foot tall. Yeah, there's gonna be a high probability, probably 75% maybe, that your kid's gonna be tall, but there's gonna be that 25% that he's gonna be short, right? Because, to say, 2 generations down the line, you had a great grandfather that wasn't that tall, who
Yeah.
married a great grandmother that wasn't that tall. So now you have, like, this 25% chance that your kid's going to be short. And the funny thing with genetics, it shows up, like, in the in like when you don't expect it. Like, it just kind of, like, shows up. Or,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, there was this one girl in South Africa. I need to find who she was, but there's something called, um it's basically a gene. Like, so for example, if you had an African American, or an African, right, great grandmother, and let's say that you married white, you married white, now you're white passing, right? Even though genetically, there's a probability that you're going to have a kid who has a darker skin tone. And so
Hmm.
there was this one girl in Africa that actually happened to. So she had a very fair mother, very fair dad, and then she was dark. And it was just kind of like, well, what do you do
Is that
in
really
that
my dad?
particular time
Yeah.
period? Yeah, because of the whole of genetics, of how genetics work. Or you have people who, I knew that there was this one girl that I knew, and she was blonde hair, blue eyes, and her daughter was my complexion, dark hair. And I was all like, she would explain to me, my great great grandmother was Mexican, and she had like a very dark daughter, like, ethnic looking daughter. And it was because of that. Genetics are just kind of like a weird thing. Weird thing. You just don't know
Well,
what's going to show
with
up.
him and what he does, I mean, are they explicitly doing gene editing for the embryos he's creating since he's in that realm?
That's right. You didn't. You I did not think about it in those terms. So you're right. He could be doing gene editing. You don't know.
Yeah. Well,
That is true.
and like with these kids that he's having, it's just like he's got the finances to take care of them, but he's so busy, like you don't have the time to spend with them. Like, okay, you can spend time
Yeah.
with them on the weekends or whatever, but like you're not spending the quality time with them. And I mean, you're not even with that person. The girl that he had the kids with, like, he's not even with her. And like him and Grimes are quote unquote fluid and they plan on having a third child at some point. And then you've got the one twin that just, is 18 who said she wants nothing to do with him. So like what's the point? I mean, I get he's trying to by himself save the population by having kids, basically, he says. But at what cost? Right? Like, okay, that's cool. You're putting them out there, but what about the quality of life of like having the father in your life, having your dad in your life, like a real father, you know?
That's if all he wore was one hat, like let's say one hat, one job, right? That made a lot of money. I mean, he could have technically all his kids together on the weekends and do that.
Well, that's
But
two
he's not
days
a
a week.
typical 9 to 5. Yeah, but he doesn't even have that much time. I mean, in all reality, he doesn't even have that much
Yeah.
time
Well, sometimes he does have the kids
to
at the factory with him, but it's
yeah,
like you're still at work at that case, and
exactly.
it's only for 2 days.
That's he doesn't have time. He's running I don't know how many
Yeah, a
companies.
lot.
That lady's name,
Mhm.
it was Sarah
Oh,
Layling.
okay.
Layling. Yeah, she was a South African woman who was classified as colored by authorities during the apartheid era due to her skin color and hair texture, although she was a child of at least 3 generations of ancestors who had been regarded as white.
Wow, that's wild.
So that was just kind of like the gene. It is wild. But the whole splicing, to your point, we don't know what he's doing to that DNA of those children.
Yeah.
Um that they're giving birth to. And he doesn't and you're right, he doesn't have time. Like there, even if he doesn't even have. I don't think he even has 2 days a week. To be honest, he's running what? How many companies?
Like 6.
Tesla, right? SpaceX. There's
He's
no
got
way.
Solar City,
There's no
Tesla,
way.
SpaceX, Boring Company. Um, I'm sure there's another one in there. I mean, he's been the whole Twitter thing, but whatever with that. Um,
There, I've heard that it's not
yeah, he
happening.
said that he's pulling out because they didn't abide by the contract in place to provide information showing that less than 5% of their users are not bots.
Mm. Eh.
They're supposedly going to sue
Well, he
him.
made a statement.
We'll see.
Oh, mm.
We'll see.
Oh, we're gonna sue him. Jack Dorsey.
I don't think it was Jack Dorsey.
I don't
It's
think
because Jack Dorsey, I don't think's even with the company anymore.
is he not? Did he just say I don't want to do that anymore?
I think he's still
Let me
partially
see.
like on the board or something like that, but I want to think that he like
Jack Dorsey's only 45.
stepped down or whatever.
You know, if I was Jack
I think he wanted
Dorsey,
to focus on something else. I forget what it was, but he wanted to focus on something else.
he's a philanthropist. Yeah, you're right. He's a former CEO of Twitter. Twitter's just become something that I don't even think he wanted,
Yeah.
like wanted to deal
It would
with.
have been good,
Because you know, you
I
think
think.
about
I
these.
think it would have been better than what it is as far as uh I guess fairness or whatever. People being kicked off and
You know, I I can see why he stepped away. I'd be tired of it. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's almost become a thing of its own, right? Where you're trying to manage people's speech because obviously you don't want hate speech on your app or anything that's going to promote
Right.
violence, and having to draw those moral lines for people, right? Which is very subjective, even though there's some objective, it is very subjective in it. And then you don't really have real people going through those trimming. It's all just like words that are tagged, right? And then having to manage that whole piece of it and the legality of it, and it just became I mean, I could just see it becoming a nightmare
Especially with the
to
federal
deal
government
with.
like getting involved and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to deal with that personally. I mean, you start your
I mean, he's
company to
just
have
going like,
fun
look,
and do cool things, and then now you're having to deal with the federal government talking about you can't have this person and you can have that person, and if you don't, you're going to be blah blah blah. And like, I know you're a personal company, but you need to, you're basically manipulating population, and it's a lot.
it's wild. He's not married or has any
Yeah, I
children.
know.
No, what he's doing, what is he just doing? Meditating
I
and has
think
like
he's
a
like a
partner? I
vegan
don't
and
know.
stuff. I don't know.
He's living in San Francisco. Let's see. He's just doing philanthropy and I don't know what he's doing.
There was some
I
company
would
that
want to
he
step
wanted to
away.
focus on.
I don't really keep up with billionaires. I don't even know. I don't know what it's like to have that kind of money. He's worth $4.4 billion, and you're just a kid who liked to program, right? I don't know what he was, his degree, programmer, right? Internet entrepreneur. You're just somebody who liked to program, had an
Oh, that's
idea,
right.
you
He
know.
um he wanted to focus on the blockchain and crypto and stuff like that. He owns Block Inc., which is a governance center for
mm.
crypto and blockchain.
So I guess he's doing good for himself. I mean, what is you? I mean, I guess what do? You just work on what you just do. I mean, if you're that rich,
Work
I'm
on
sure you just take up
projects.
passion projects, right?
Projects. I'm working on a project.
Projects. Exactly. Exactly. I find that that's what people say that have like no, have either real money or nothing to do, right? So either the real money, I'm just working on projects going on, or they have no money and then they're just saying that they're working on some project. But yeah, we're tired of that mess. It would have been a headache for me. I don't think the programming and what they converted Twitter, the whole managing of Twitter and being constantly on the internet, being judged by people on what I did and on what I didn't do, and what my obligations are, and what my responsibilities are, and what I owe the government and what I owe the people. It's just that's too stressful. It's too stressful.
Yeah.
So I can see why he kind of like said, I'm not doing it. As CEO, the face of it, if anybody does something crazy on Twitter, the one that has to like down and face the music for it. I cannot see that being a very happy place for me.
Excuse me.
But
Yeah, no.
yeah, Jack Dorsey doing his thing. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how the whole blockchain works. I invest very little in crypto because like they say, you don't want to invest in things that you're like willing to lose. I follow a couple of people um in the cryptoverse, but I haven't read any white papers. They say to recommend that read
The
the
white paper.
white
Yeah.
paper for Bitcoin. Yeah, it's just to figure out what they do and what the technology does. Rather interesting for sure. For sure when it comes to
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's if you bought in the past 2 years, right now is not a good time because it took a
No.
huge tank. But
And
now's a good time to get some because
people,
it's all cheap. So
yeah,
what's
people
Bitcoin at?
invested like thousands of dollars, and some people invested their retirement in Bitcoin, like crazy amounts of money in that. Do you know, you got to know what you're doing for sure. I mean, it's not something that you can just get into without knowing exactly what you're doing. And it's money that you have to not have any issue losing. Because I
Yeah.
know it would hurt me if I lost, my retirement. What did you do with your retirement? I put it in Bitcoin. Mm,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't
Bitcoin
know
is
about
at
that.
21,000 right now. And like last
It
year,
was a
it was
six,
at
wasn't it?
60. Well, I guess that was last year, it was at 61,000. And now it's at
So if you put
21, and it's supposed to dip to possibly 10. So, I mean, it'd be a good time to
wow,
get
10
in
could be yeah, maybe a little
compared
bit
to
more
last
money.
year.
God, last year that was worth a lot. People who play that, released in Bitcoin, they make a living off it
Yeah.
for sure. So I don't know if have you ever listened to Gary Vee?
Yeah, yeah. He comes up all
Have
the
you heard of
time in
V
my stuff.
Vanishes?
He gets on my nerves
Yeah, he
sometimes.
comes out of my feed, and he is,
Like,
I
he's
would
got
say,
some good information,
ex,
but like
ex,
he just he just gets on my nerves.
he just does. He's extremely peppy and extremely passionate
Yeah.
about what he does. Um, there's some things that I think Gary says that are like don't go to college if you don't feel like going to college, and I'm like, Gary, why are you telling people not to go to college? And I can
Well,
see
college
his
isn't for everybody,
standpoint.
and the future is not college.
No,
The future is
it's not.
companies offering their own certificates and stuff.
It's not, and it is coming from if you have so here's the thing, if you have the privilege to have the ability
If somebody pays for
to
that shit for you,
create
do it.
contacts, yeah, exactly, to create those contacts. But I'm like looking as being a woman,
Stop
that's where I
networking.
created my contacts, that's where I created my network. I didn't have a network. Now I have a network. None of my friends had a network. College is where we started networking. I will say this, when mostly women started getting degrees, minority women, just women in general started getting degrees and becoming more educated than men at this point, I think that, and let's talk about this because I don't, I think now everybody has a master's. Now they're saying, okay, well, you don't need a degree. And it's like, look, there's a lot of women that went to school, got their masters, got their PhDs, and now they're saying, okay, well, it's oversaturated. I feel similar to some of the folks that are saying that influencing is dead. When it became accessible to a lot more people, it became dead, right? The influencer era is dead. But when people of color started being more, now they're saying it's not. I just feel like there's just this like really weird opinion. I think Gary, to your point, like I think he has a very positive, just going back to Gary, has a very positive way of looking at things, but not everybody is like him. Not
Yeah.
everybody has that hustler mentality to go out there. There's not everybody can say, I'm going to run a business, I'm going to do business, and I'm going to do it from the ground up. It takes a
Yeah.
special kind of person to do that. And I know my ex-husband had his companies, and he would just like work on his business, and he would just work on it on his own. Like his thing was like he would never punched a clock, didn't punch a clock since he was 21, but really just, worked and had like this very hard work ethic and just kept on grinding and grinding. But not everybody has that in them. You're
Yeah.
constantly at work. And that's what he was, constantly at work. Saturday, Sunday, it was 7 days a week, constantly working.
I
Just
think that's been
because
the hardest thing
it,
for
you,
me the past couple of years because of COVID is
yeah.
like I've always been a workaholic. Like, I love to work. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I'm
Hmm.
doing. Like, I love to work.
Yeah.
And like, I'm taking care of my mom. And then I have my oldest son who's been home because the whole COVID thing and him, whatever with school, not doing the extended
Hmm.
program after graduating because the risk of getting sick. And then my other son, I'm homeschooling, and it's just like working isn't what it was for me before. And I think that's one of the hardest things, is because I love to work. Like, working is what I love to do. So, yeah, some people are made for it, and some people rather have the time to watch TV or do nothing. Like, I feel weird when I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, sure. So I think when you're working on your own, I think everything depends on you, right? Like whether you get business, what you sell, what you do, everything depends on you. And one thing from him is he had the art of multiple income streams down. I have I'm selling this on eBay. I'm selling, while so the idea was to make money while he wasn't even like he was
Well, yeah.
sleeping, right? Um, so it was just, but it varies. So you're right. I mean, if you if you can if you can do it on your own and you have that drive to start your own business, but what he was saying, point back to futurist certificates and things like that. He was saying that if companies don't like the new work, they're really not going to like the future, because these kids are on the internet saying, I can make whatever number makes them happy. I can make $80,000, travel the world, still set up some time for retirement, spend X amount of money because I'm working with some remote countries where coming to the States whenever I have to. They're not going to have an interest in working your traditional 9 to 5 because they have other ways of making money.
Yep.
Whether it's programming, whether it's a certification, whether it's a travel vlog, right? Whatever.
Yep.
So
Well,
I do
anybody could
find
make
it,
money right now doing whatever they love.
yeah,
There's never been an
yeah.
easier
I
time to
mean,
do that.
people do. I mean, people have been on. I don't know. I've been on cake TikTok, and all these people, all they do is decorate cakes, right? Or you're on candle TikTok, and all these people do or make candles.
And slime
There's
and art and
slime. That whole slime is bizarre. Let's make slime, and then they add crystals to them. And to your point, art. This girl is making money off selling distressed jeans, and she tells people to do it. Of course, people aren't going to do it. She buys $12 Wrangler jeans at Walmart, cuts them. She takes her 5 minutes to cut them up, runs them in the washer. They get as distressed as she wants. She even has like a technique. She had her husband cut them so that they're shorter in the front and longer in the back. So if you have it'll be covered. And does a quick cut like with like a pizza cutter type deal, fabric cutter. It looks like a pizza
Mhm.
cutter, and then throws them in the washer. That's how she makes money. People go thrifting, shop and thrifting, put in the outfits together, post them on eBay. Facebook, my ex-sister-in-law used to sell clothes on Facebook Live,
Oh, yeah.
and she made some money off that. So, I mean, you're right, people are making money the way that they're can. It's not your traditional 9 to 5. And as we get more, yeah, things are, and they're changing rapidly. Rapidly, because now, to your point, there was a time where there was just a couple of people maybe doing some YouTube videos, a lot of people doing that, but now, to your point, with the advent of TikTok, people are making money doing exactly what they want to do, what they love, even hobbies too,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yep.
know,
That and
which was certain.
Pinterest, right? Because you supposedly the Pinterest pays well for like influencer or whatever. You just post your pins on Pinterest and you get paid for the views, I guess, on Pinterest. I don't know. It's something I want to
I have not
look into, but you
explored.
got to learn all
You
the
have to,
platforms.
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. supposedly TikTok's going to start paying more money, but you have to have X number of followers. I think it's like 100,000. But I've noticed that I'm seeing more advertisements like Glad. Saw a Glad trash bag advertisement on there. I'm seeing more advertisement.
Yeah.
Whereas before, excuse me, there was nothing. There's no
Right.
advertisements like that. There's no like big advertisements. I'm beginning to see that. So interesting times that we are living in for sure. It's a weird transition. Did you send me the you sent me the article of the lemon guy, lemon, the
Lemoyne.
engine Lemoyne. That's how you spell that. I call him lemon. Lemoyne, the engineer that that said that it was sentient. I saw that.
Oh, the
Interesting.
interview.
I had actually had the interview and I actually read the article and I mean,
Why am I so white? Oh,
yeah.
it's like my
I think
lighting changed.
it's one
I
of
didn't
those
do anything.
your lighting. It's one of those things that I can see his argument. I mean, yeah, I can see his argument. So we shall see. We'll just see what happens, right? I wonder what he's gonna do now, right? Because now, who's gonna pick him up? Like, he's obviously out of Google. Like, who's gonna work? Who's gonna want to work with him? I guess he's gonna have to work for maybe a think tank or some sort of advocacy group. Now his name's out there. Maybe he could do the speaking circuit where he's going to talk at universities and it's so
I don't know if
funny,
he'll be
Michelle,
allowed
that
to. Well, I
now
mean, for certain stuff, I don't know if he'd be allowed to talk about
for
that.
certain things like he can not in particular for certain things like what these we live in a day and age and I coincides with the fact that I was watching Natural Born Killers the other right and now it's like
You're cutting out
all
really
of these
bad.
sorry I am I oh let me see okay it says green right now okay do you hear me
Yeah.
so they're saying with all these people getting famous through infamy right so you do something like that like these folks are getting book deals they're getting speaking engagements all of those things for going public so even if they get let's just say sued by the company in which case, I don't know if Google will sue him or not maybe just let him go right pay him and let him go and have him not talk about this again not talk about that but even though he doesn't have necessarily can talk about that topic and that technology certain things he can probably talk that are probably general uh, knowledge probably up and get speaking and that's it you have to program for the life if you play these cards right I mean we'll see what happens what was his name Lemonade
Lemoyne.
Mon Lemoyne
Yeah.
Lemoyne the Lemoyne guy so he do whatever he wants now we'll see what he shows up in doing that. Lately, I've been watching all of the old movies, you know, and I'm just thinking, gosh, that would never be made today, or they would never say that
Like what?
today. Just certain things, like even when you're watching, what was it that I was watching the other day? Like, I don't think that they could make a movie like Animal House. Um, I don't think that they would make a movie like Tropic Thunder. And that wasn't too long ago. I think there's certain movies that aren't gonna be that they're not gonna make because they weren't controversial at the time. It was strictly a comedy. I don't think people find those sort of jokes funny anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think you can get away with it. So it's an interesting time for what they can say. Hey, the other day I was watching roast. What was that gentleman's name from Full House? Um, He
The
was
dad?
on Full House. He died recently.
Um,
He was not Uncle
yeah, I
Jesse.
forget his name.
Yeah, the dad of Full House, and they had a roast of him, and then the jokes were just like gross. The jokes during his roast were gross, and everybody was laughing. And then you
Bob
think
Saget.
about Bob Saget. Yeah, they had like the most disgusting joke, and people were laughing. That wasn't too long. It was like a Saget roast. It was bad. They were bad, and people were just like, they were very uncomfortable, cringe jokes.
Yeah, he was kind
So,
of cringy,
and that wasn't too long ago. He was kind of cringy. He
which
was
is
kind of
weird because he was on such a wholesome TV
cringe.
show.
No, they were all like, well, not him. The guy, that guy, that what's his name, Dave Goulet. So it was Bob Saget, Uncle Jesse, and then
Hmm.
this blonde guy called Dave Goulet. He was also on the show. So
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
almost like he used to date Alanis Morissette, and he was like very famous Canadian singer. And I don't know if you've ever heard of her. If you do
Alanis
get the
Morissette?
opportunity, yeah, he used to date Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's this song that she has, "You Oughta Know." I think
Oh,
that's what
I've
it's
not
called.
heard of his songs. I know who Alanis Morissette is, and I know who you're talking about on Full House. I didn't know he sang.
No, she did. She sing. He dedicated a song, not dedicated a song, but wrote a song about him. And there's one where and then it's weird because it's him that she's writing the song about
Oh,
because she dated him.
that is weird.
Yeah, Alanis Morissette dated him.
Hmm, I could see it.
I don't know because she's kind of like a little bit edgy. Um, that I was like, oh, but anyway, um, yeah, that. She has this song, and then when I think about him, to your point, being in such a wholesome show, um, and having him date Alanis Morissette, I didn't expect that, but oh well, it is what it
Yeah.
is. It is what it is. So Elon Musk and his 9 babies. Whew, that's a lot of children's with no time.
Yeah. It's definitely weird. I don't know. I don't know what to think about him these days. He's doing some very, I don't know, weird things. He's always been weird, but I don't know, just having babies, knowing everything that's going on. I mean, he's super smart, but like does some very questionable things sometimes for sure.
Mm-mm. Mm. You know speaking of Elon Musk, I thought about Elon Musk and then I thought about Austin, Texas, because those are connected
Hmm.
now. Um, Emma Stone moved to Austin. Emma Stone yeah, she moved to Austin, Texas, bought a $7 million mansion, and yeah, sold her $14,000 mansion, bought a $7,000 mansion,
14
pocketing
million.
14 million. Yeah, pocketing some money and moving to Austin, Texas. You know, I Austin used to be such an enjoyable city, and now like the river, people used to like the river's like packed downtown. There's like people everywhere. They have like very expensive stores now. Like I think they have the Hermes is in Austin. It just kind of transformed that whole city. Um, it's just changed. And it's got good restaurants. I enjoy going there. I've taken weekend trips to Austin, but it's not the same as it was.
Yeah. I mean, it's
No, no,
becoming way
no.
too populated down there and they're pricing people out that have lived there forever.
Yeah, so people are having to move farther and farther out, and all these very wealthy people are moving in, selling their houses in California and coming back, which I don't know why, because California's now I mean, Gavin's doing a couple of really good things. I know we talked about
But
it,
it's still
but
incredibly
the,
expensive, and you have state taxes there.
that's true. You have healthcare, but you have healthcare that's provided for you.
Well, not yet.
You have, yeah, but I mean, it's going to healthcare that's provided for you, which is pretty decent. They have that budget overage that they're going to be using to to mortgage houses for people. So now there's going to have like rent to own programs that are
Yeah,
subsidized
that
by
is
the
true.
government to make housing more accessible to folks. And granted, even though they do pay state income tax and gas prices are really high, I'm not going to say that they're not. I will say this, they don't have as much, the property taxes are expensive. I'm sure you have to do the math if you're an accountant to figure out what, but the property taxes here in Texas are expensive and they go up without any mercy. And in California, they don't go up as high as they do here in Texas. So they do, if you own a home, you do have some advantages. And if you're from there, like if you're from there, and I say this, if you have a family that has had a house there and you have a house there and you own it, then there's really no reason to leave the state. I mean, the weather is amazing. I used to criticize California very harshly, but seeing what the governor of California is doing for its state, I mean, I do find it commendable.
Yeah, he is doing a lot of things trying to make it better.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to make it better, trying to get people probably to move back. I wonder if he's going to be running for president. I'm curious if that's where his eyes are
I saw
in terms of.
something that talked about him for 2024, like an article or something that he was, I don't know, dropping the possibility of it or something like that. Be interesting.
Hmm. I think it would be him and DeSantis. I heard that he put a commercial out in Florida,
Yeah,
staying to come back to
yeah.
California.
But like the price
So
in
I
Florida
wonder.
compared to California is just not
No, not for people who are. Although I will say that people are getting priced out of those
of
places.
Florida.
People,
Yeah.
especially if they were paying some rent, and now they're competing with, because rent prices are going up because companies are moving to Florida. Companies move to Florida, they bring their employees there, and they're paying their employees what they brought them in California, which is not what the salaries are in Florida. So they're able to afford to live there. But I think we're gonna see things. I mean, with inflation rates the way they are, we'll see how all of this turns out. Because they're saying they're expecting food shortages, but I haven't really seen that in the supermarket.
I
I
haven't
have not
either.
seen that at
Yeah.
all. I mean, the food stocked here. I have seen things, um, fruits, and I don't know if because of fruit is getting kind of, it's not staying as fresh. Right, but I don't know if part of it is because they don't have enough drivers, and so it may be sitting
Yeah.
in one place
I've
longer, I
noticed
don't
that
know.
too, that the food goes bad like so fast, and it's
Yeah.
because like, yeah, it's sitting on a truck somewhere forever. Because like the stuff that I pick off my patio, it stays good for like a month or more. And so you
Mhm.
know that food's got to be sitting somewhere on a truck forever. If it's going bad, like when you buy it a week after you buy it, sometimes my like fruit starts molding a few days after I get it.
Yeah, it's like you have to eat it right away or go to the grocery store every day, which is not a bad thing, but
It's a
it's
hassle. Yeah.
inconvenient.
I was trying to see
It is,
like
but people
houses
go to.
available in California, but I don't know. Zillow's telling me there ain't none. I find that hard to believe. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there's houses for sale. They're actually, if you start looking at Northern California, not like, you know, they're not where San Francisco is, but below, they're a little bit cheaper. And then there's always like you live 45 minutes to an hour outside of LA. If you start heading to the desert, they're also a lot cheaper. But then there's the other thing, the water issue, right?
Yeah.
In California. Actually everywhere. Oh my goodness. There's so much drought and it's so hot. It was like triple digits here, and I'm sure it's going to be triple digits.
So there's about 1,000
Where else?
houses listed on Zillow to buy right now in California. Roughly about 1,000.
In
Yeah.
California. Well, you sure? In the whole state? That's weird. Or is it just Los
Well,
Angeles
it's
County?
Zillow. So
There can't.
whatever Zillow is pulling up of people listing houses on the MLS for California, that's what's popping up.
It's only 1,000 houses. There was 1,000 houses listed in San Antonio
But that's
alone.
Texas. I mean, I'm sure there
Yeah,
are
but that number
more,
doesn't seem right.
but that's all that's
That
coming
number
up.
doesn't seem right. That's weird. That number doesn't seem. It doesn't seem right. Um, that's considering the population
Supposedly, there's a
of
lot
that
more that are
state.
open that are not being rented right
Hmm.
now. So that are available, but that are not being sold.
That are available but are not being
Correct.
sold.
Because they're not for sale, but they're not being, like, corporations own them and they haven't done anything with them.
I don't know why they're holding on to them.
They're inflating
Let
the
me
price
see.
of housing in California right now. There's like huge complexes that are like 45% empty, 50% empty. And they were talking about this huge like housing bubble right now in California because you saw all these people move out of California with everything that happened, and yet the prices still increased. And it's because corporations came in and bought these places all up, but nobody's living in them. And so
That's
a few of
insane.
the people that I follow that are like real estate agents and stuff said that the market is incredibly inflated right now and that it's a bubble basically in California right now. And at some point, that bubble is going to pop, they said.
Oh, you're just saying 1,000 houses listed on Zillow. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's like
Right.
1,000 houses as a whole.
Right. Yeah, it's just Zillow.
Um, yeah, that's insane. So you used to do real estate.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to get out of it?
I hated it. The money is good, but like I hated it. I hated driving a bunch of places to show people 15 houses for them to say they didn't like any of them, to say they
Mm-hmm.
didn't like the paint on the walls in that house, therefore they don't want to buy the entire house. Like, but that's the only thing that was
Mm-hmm.
wrong with it. Or like $1 million house and they're like, it's not good enough, it's not big enough. For me, it was just really hard because there are like so many people who don't have a house and you're complaining about paint on the wall in a multi-million-dollar house. Like, paint it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I hated it. Especially like the people who waste your time because there's no contract with people. So if they don't, like, a lot of people don't want to pay. Well, for one, buyers don't even pay the fee. It's the sellers that pay the fee. So it's like, I don't know. I hated it. It wasn't for me. I didn't like dealing with all the complaints of like, oh, things that are wrong with this house that are literally cosmetic that could be fixed. And these people are looking at multi-million-dollar houses. You know, it's like, you literally have the
Yeah.
money. You're looking at a multi-million-dollar house. You could literally just change the thing.
You know what I did, I used to make the assumption that folks have money, that because they lived in such a million, like in a $1 million
Oh yeah, they're
house,
just in debt.
that they had a lot of money. There's people that are just like in debt. They're in debt. There was this one lady, she said that there was this doctor who wanted to get a loan and she declined him, and he's like, "Why did you decline me? Do you not realize how much money I make a month?" And she was like, "Well, when you take your student loans, your mortgage, the Bentley that you bought, the Porsche that you brought your
Yeah.
wife, the private school,
Yeah,
you're in the
right,
red.
right. And that's what people don't understand about like people living paycheck to paycheck. And they're like, well, they make $500,000 a
Mhm.
year and they're living paycheck to paycheck. Well, yeah, it's because they're leveraged. Well, not even leveraged, because leverage is when you can actually make money off your money. They're literally just in debt. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet there's people that live within there's people that live within their means. You don't need to have, if you're a doctor, you don't need to have $1 million home.
Right.
You can have a $350,000 home, a $400,000 home. You're still living in a very nice house, probably in a very nice neighborhood, and you don't have to have the most expensive vehicle. You can have an entry, if you want to do luxury, you can have an entry level luxury
Mm-hmm.
car, still have a nice house, still have nice things. Or there's people who don't buy luxury
Yeah, it's
cars,
a
right? They just
Toyota
have
or
like
something.
just a nice car. A Toyota or something, have a nice car. Don't have to have a nice car. I know very wealthy people that when you look at them would not realize that they were
And
wealthy,
that's why they're
who
wealthy.
they're driving, yeah, and driving their Honda that they've had for years and years and years and
Right.
years, and their Camry. But there are people who live beyond their means. And to your point, they may have had the money they didn't want to, they couldn't afford to change the cosmetic. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Well, certain things can be negotiated and stuff too. Like you could negotiate with the sellers and things. But yeah, to me, it just was like there were some things that were really good, like helping people get a house that have never had a house who are really excited about getting it.
Mhm.
But then there's those people who literally waste your time and you take them to go look at 15 houses and then they're like, I think I'm going to go talk to this other agent. But like,
Mhm.
just cause, oh, my friend's cousin does it and I didn't know, so I'm gonna go work with them, and it's like, whatever. It's,
So you just,
well, and the
yeah.
crazy thing is, there would be buyers that like are trying to negotiate this fee with you of your commission, and it's like, you don't pay my commission. They would literally try to
Mhm.
negotiate part of my commission as the buyer. And I'm like, you don't even pay the commission, the seller does.
And what would you say? What would they say when you told them that? You'd be like, "Oh, sorry."
Some of them because they just didn't know, but some of them literally wanted you to give them some of your 6%. Well, because you're not even getting
Oh, that's
6%, you're
insane.
getting 3, and the other agent is getting
Mhm.
3, unless they've
Yeah.
somehow negotiated a deal where they're getting more, which is, if you're a reputable agent, you don't do that. Like, you don't take the other agent's cut, you
Yeah.
just don't. But yeah, people
Yeah.
don't understand that, and they're like, oh, especially sellers, they're like, 6%, that's a lot, but it's like, I'm not getting that 6%. Like, the
Yeah.
seller and the buyer agent are getting 3%, but we're not even getting that
Mhm.
3%. Our brokerage is
Mhm.
getting a portion of that. So it's like,
Mhm.
and then people want you to sell their house for a discount. Like, yeah, I get it. It's a lot of money. But you also want an agent who knows what they're talking about and what they're doing. And that's what you're paying for,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, but soon enough, I mean, you're not even going to need an agent. The blockchain is allowing people to be able to sell their own property with its own code on the blockchain, on the graph or whatever, on the geographical map. And you're not going to need an agent soon. Like, if you want to sell somebody your deed, you're literally just going to be able to sell them the deed to your property and they own your property through an NFT essentially.
Interesting. Saw this it was this weird program. One of my coworkers, when he sold his house, they would they didn't really have an agent. They would That person would come in, take pictures of the house, post it on like Zillow, and they would charge a percentage, but it wasn't even like
Mhm.
6%.
We did that with my
It was
mom's
it was
house.
it, it was yeah, it was just like a discount.
Yeah,
They didn't really do they
we hired this company. I think it was called OfferPad. OfferPad came in, they took
mm,
pictures of it, and then literally they bought it. The deal was done in like less than I think it was like a few weeks. The deal was done.
mm.
And I mean, it was easy. There's no like showing your house, there's no like negotiating on prices. There's like, that's it. Like they tell you, here's the offer. Do you want it or not? We'll buy the house cash straight out. Like easy. And it's
Wow.
not 6%. It was
Yeah,
like, I don't know. I forget how much it was. I don't think it was 6%, but I think it was a little bit less.
to just like sell your
Yeah.
house. Yeah, it was something like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting for sure.
The market is so weird because, like, my house that I bought out there where you live, when I bought that house, I got it for $131,000. And I was looking on Zillow the other night at it, and the Zestimate or whatever is like 386,000.
Yeah. No, they're so much they're
Yeah, I
costing.
know, I know. It's
Yep.
just like it had zero upgrades in it. Zero. It was run of the mill, thrown together, like construction. I mean, History Maker is not known for quality. Um, but yeah, I'm like, that's insane. If if I would have just kept that house
It's insane.
for a little bit longer.
No, the real estate market's insane. It's insane. I mean, it's crazy. We have a lake house that I built with my mom, and we didn't spend a lot of money building it, and it's $300,000. Just like it, it's interesting what's going on
Yeah.
right now with the real estate market. And some people say, I know that we talked about this maybe on the last podcast, that there's going to be a housing bubble, but the circumstances are different, and people are selling in higher priced areas like California, Washington State, um, even like Chicago,
Well, the bubble is going to
the
come
East
when people
Coast.
can't afford to rent the houses. That's when the bubble is going to come, is
Ex-
because the
yeah,
corporations are inflating the prices right now, saying there's no houses to buy because these corporations are buying them all up. But they're inflating
mm-hmm,
the prices so much that normal people are not going to be able to rent them. So it doesn't matter
yeah.
whether they're for sale or whether they're for rent. They're going to be sitting on the market because people are not going to be able to afford them.
And I don't know why. Understand. I don't know why rent is. It doesn't need to be going up 200% or 300%. It makes no sense because taxes aren't going up 300%,
But the prices of the
right? It
properties
may
are.
Yeah, but even if the prices of the property
Well, the
are,
rule for renting is
your taxes
1%
aren't.
of the property value.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But even if you had if it's 1% of the property value, what is that for a $200,000
That's
home?
$2,000 a month.
It's $2,000 a month, but they're not.
But there's no
That's a
$200,000 homes, though.
decent.
That's the thing. Like $200,000 homes are shacks that need to be knocked over right now.
That's true. So now for a $3,500,000, 3,300,000, it's $3,000 for a home.
Yeah. So looking at that
Yeah,
house
you're
that I
right. Like
got,
right there.
that house being 380 something
Hmm.
$1,000, that's $3,800 a month for that piece of shit house. Like it was okay, but it definitely is not worth no
Nobody,
300 like $3,800 a month.
people aren't gonna afford that
No, you
though.
can't, especially if you're asking them to make 2 times or 3 times the rent, which is what pretty much the going standard is now, is that you have to make 3 times the rent. That's what it is for apartments as well.
You're gonna create unless you have like rent controlled apartments, it's gonna create certainly a wealth gap. Like how is somebody making, you know, if you're gonna get a small house, right? That's $300,000, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, maybe 2 bath for a family of 4 or 5. That's not going to be possible.
It's not.
Like, it's not. It's not going to be possible. The only way you're going to be doing it is what people were doing in California years ago, where they were renting the living room, like literally renting the living room. They and their family lived in a room, and they're renting or creating. In California, they call them ADUs,
Yep.
building
But in some
ADUs
states, you're not
where,
even allowed to do that now, right? We talked about this before too. If you're not a
yeah,
member of the family, then you can't live there.
yeah, I think it was Kansas did it. Kansas is the state. Kansas, it was a municipality in Kansas that was like, if they only allowed one person to live there. I don't know what people are going to
Well,
do.
they
I don't know how they're going to
yeah,
afford
what they're
homes.
doing right now is really dumb because I don't know if you saw the interview with, I forget what his name was, but he's like one of the biggest corporations, and he was talking about pushing raising rents because you can, because people have nowhere else to go. So where else are they going to go? Well, the problem with that is, especially if you're not going to let people live together, is people aren't going to be able to get your shit. Like, push it to what? Like, you're trying
Yeah.
to push rents and make them higher, but yet people's incomes are not getting higher. Minimum wage is not even a livable wage. And yet we complain
Even if
about
you're
China and shit and the way that they pay their workers. But if you look at the cost of what it takes to live here, that, you know, people are like, oh, this is the best country because you can make the most money here. Like $7 an hour is good, especially to countries elsewhere. But it's not good if that is not enough to get you anything,
yeah.
right? Like, yeah, okay, seven something an hour is not good if you're not able to get a place to live. And even working multiple
You're going to be
jobs with
living.
that, you know, like, it's crazy. They're talking about how much the market is, like the job market basically is fully recovered and stuff. Well, my opinion on this is that it hasn't necessarily fully recovered with people, but it's because people have to work multiple jobs just to live. And that's what's filling the market.
Oh, yeah. They're working their normal 9 to 5. And then some people have a side hustle and a
Yeah.
weekend job. Or some people are working 2 jobs. Like, they'll work like the night shift at one job and then the day shift at another one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then on the weekends, they'll probably do some pickup work, like cutting lawns,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah,
Well, I know,
people are working two
like
to three jobs.
Alexis, she works for a really big coffee company. We won't say the name, but they literally schedule her like a max of 3 days a week. And each of those shifts is no longer than 5 hours. That's it.
Wow.
Because they don't have to give them a lunch break. And they don't have to give them
Wow.
benefits at that point.
So how do you get benefits? Like,
That's what a lot of jobs
and
are
I've
doing.
never, how about, so we still have Obamacare, but how does that work? You still pay into it?
I don't know. I think you just go on the marketplace and apply. And the thing with that is you have to make a certain amount of money to qualify for Obamacare. And if you don't make at
Okay.
least like 30 something thousand a year, you don't qualify. So you have
Mm,
to make like a minimum of like 30 something a year to even get that.
okay.
And then it's kind of a catch
Okay. So I don't
22
know.
because unless you're a pregnant woman or a child, you can't get Medicaid.
Yeah.
So you're stuck in this like limbo of not getting insurance from your company. You don't qualify for Obamacare. You can't get Medicaid because you're none of the other things. So it's like you're well, like for her, we have a direct care doctor that we pay. It's like a monthly
Mhm.
service fee or whatever, and we can use her anytime. If we have a problem on the nights or weekends, we can call her. She does our like
Mhm.
preventative care is covered with our monthly membership. So women, your
Mhm.
women's pap smear is covered every year. Your yearly blood work is covered in your membership and stuff like that. If you need additional labs, it's discounted. If you need like x-rays or MRIs or something, she works with a place that gives her a discounted rate to her clients. So, I mean, it's still kind of expensive though. Like I had to get an MRI, it was still a few $100s.
Yeah.
But that's what we have because we don't have actual insurance. We have a direct care doctor. And if we needed, like, if we had a major issue, then you can get um, catastrophic insurance or some shit like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, that's what these companies are doing. The IV companies that I worked at previously, they did the same thing. Like, they kept you at a certain amount of hours that didn't consider you full time, even though you were working like 30 something hours, 40 something hours. But you're not full time unless you work that many hours for 6 weeks in a row. So they'll work you for that many hours for so many weeks and then drop you back down so they don't have to give you benefits. And then only have you work 4 and
Oh
5 hours
wow.
a day. So they also don't have to give you a lunch. And I find that literally that is what so many companies are doing now, from McDonald's to Chick-fil-A to like all of these different companies. And they're like, oh, but I thought that's what you wanted. You wanted 4 and 5 hour work days, right? So you didn't have to work so long. And they're blaming it on the worker for wanting shorter work days. But it's like, yeah, okay, but how about 5 days a week? So you make your 40 hours, but
Mhm.
that's not what they're doing.
Mm. Oh wow. So is she still gonna? So she's still working for that
Yes,
place?
I
Is
mean,
she? Does
she's
she have another job?
17 and there's, she
Oh,
Oh,
she's
I'm
still
sorry.
in high
She just
school.
turned 18 on the 2nd of this month. No, she's
Okay.
graduated. She finished in December.
Oh, she
Yeah.
graduated. Okay.
So I mean, she's here, so she helps like watch her brothers and stuff when I take my mom to the gym, and then we also have the nanny that helps us like for about 9 hours a week. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I mean, she doesn't really need a whole bunch of money, so it's just kind of her money to really she's just been saving it right now. Um, but she's paying her own phone bill, which is what we had, and then now we'll probably have her start paying her own direct care fee to the doctor because it's $100
Mm.
a month for 18 to, I think it's like 18 to 35. It's like $100 or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's not
mine's
bad.
125. Being 37, I'll be 37 this
Mm.
year. It's 125 a month for me.
Oh wow, that's not bad
Mm-mm.
at
And
all.
then like my younger son is 75 because he's under 18.
But just like for your direct
Yeah,
care. Oh wow.
and she's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a nice little office. It's literally right on the side of our complex. Well, it's not like on the side of our
Mm.
complex. It's on like right across the street. So I mean,
Mhm.
it's really convenient. And like I said, if you're sick on the weekend or something, there's a number that you can call to talk to her directly, and she'll see you, and they'll come to the office and check you out. And yeah, I mean, it's nice having somebody that you can literally just call on whenever you need them when you're sick, instead of having to go to the hospital. I mean, if you have to after they check you out, then obviously you have to, depending on what's wrong with you. But saves you money from having to go to like an emergency clinic or whatever, whatever the little 24-hour emergency clinics or something.
Yeah, it's definitely certainly a way to go. Way to kind of look at healthcare. It's just so difficult for so many families right now to handle that aspect of it, and you know it's milk is so, I mean, milk is expensive, eggs are expensive, like I'm you
Girl, you're not
know
telling nobody we got 5 people
they're
here. Like,
they're
yeah,
expensive. 2.99 a pound, $3 a
yeah.
pound, you know $2.50, like, I mean, it's like, whoa, everything's $5. Woke up one morning, everything's
Yep.
$5.
Like a bag of chips is like $5 and
Insane.
$6. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
some of
I
them.
never thought I would see that in my lifetime, is seeing how expensive have things gotten because all of this is going. I think it's really
All these unprecedented
pressuring a lot
things.
of people to take everything,
Yeah.
right? Everything. So we shall see what happens, what's going on. And I haven't really kept international. The only thing I've kept be keeping up with what's going on south of the border. I don't even know what's going on with Ukraine and all of that. I have not kept up with any of that. I mean, that is it's still
Yeah.
ongoing.
We know Boris Johnson resigned, right?
Yeah, because he's yeah, that was
So
I did read about that. I
yeah,
didn't
apparently he backed some sexual assault person or
predator.
whatever, like,
Yeah.
and then his whole cabinet quit. It's crazy. Like, why can't we do that here? Like, he was essentially the UK Trump, you know, but yet,
And he's done. He just said, yeah, he backed this guy up in his cabinet completely. A lot of his folks resigned, and he said, you know what? If they're not if I'm not gonna, if my people aren't gonna be here, if they agreed, maybe I should
mhm,
resign. Which,
probably smart.
but yeah, that's probably the smart thing to do. It's certainly the right thing to do. I mean, didn't he not know all these things when he asked for this person? But yeah, he's out. It's just a lot of things happening very quickly. I wonder who's going to replace him.
Yeah, it's interesting. So much going on right now, like
What's
all
going on?
over.
All over. Big changes. Big changes. So, do you remember how Chick-fil-A is spelled? I don't
I
know, like
saw that.
this whole
I've been
thing.
spelling it with like CHICK, fillet. I've always been spelling it like that, so I don't know.
I don't know either. I just thought it was like the C chick. They're like, it's because of CERN. They
Yeah, I've seen
off
those.
balanced
Like,
everything. I have
and
no
the Oreo
idea.
thing.
They well, I don't know about the
It
Oreo thing.
says
That's I missed that one.
STUF, double STUF instead of double stuffed. It says double stoof. Like, I don't know. I just threw our pack of Oreos out the other day because they were gone. Too late.
To check it out. I always thought they had double stuff. STUFF, double
That's what I
stuff.
thought it said too, but
Not
now
double.
there's only one of. Some people are saying it had an
You know
ED
what?
at the end. I don't remember it having an ED. I just thought it said double stuff with two Fs.
I know. It just says double. I always thought it said double stuff
Yeah.
with two F's. I don't think it was gonna. It had the ED in the end. Who knows? Who knows what that CERN thing is doing? Maybe it's doing a whole lot of nothing. And
I don't think it's doing nothing, but I don't know. I mean, of course they're not going to come out and admit the things that it could really do because I feel like we literally are going to send ourselves eventually into a black hole and they're like, "Oh, that could never happen, blah blah blah." But how do we know? Like how do we know that that's not going to happen when you're slamming particles around at a speed that you've literally never done it before?
what's the goal? I think I
Finding
haven't
new
read enough. I don't
particles.
even know what their goal is. To make gold. They said that there's gold when they do it. There's gold left behind,
Oh, I don't know about
like
that. I
almost
just
like
know that they're
alchemy.
able to find new particles when they slam them together because it creates chemical reactions and then also it just slams things out of the states or something and they're able to see new particles like the God particle that they found the last time they turned it on, what, like in 2012 or some shit.
Yeah. And then they're like turning on, and the scientists are all there, all excited, figuring out what's gonna
No
happen. I
telling.
don't know. All these physicists. No telling. I need to do a little bit more research, but I certainly don't think it changed the double stuffed to double stuffed or double stuffed.
I don't know.
That's so inconsequential to our lives. Like, oh my goodness. the spelling.
Well, I mean, that's
Ooh,
technically kind of
ooh.
how butterfly effects would work, though. It literally would just be, well, people are calling them Mandela effects, but like butterfly effect, whatever. I mean, essentially, they would just be minimal changes. If you think like multiverse wise, right? Like there is a universe out there that is literally exactly the same as this one, minus one little thing. And that's what people are saying. Like we're bouncing into other dimensions or other pieces of the multiverse. And so the timelines are shifting. So it's going to be exactly the same as this one, except for small little incremental changes. Like, I don't know. Like, can we just get put into one where I'm rich? I don't know. That would be good.
There's like speaking of yeah, yeah, maybe small incremental changes, like so that's like a little butterfly effect. I read a book that dealt with that. I don't know if it was called The Butterfly
There's a
Effect
movie there. I'm sure
or
there's a
what.
book called The Butterfly Effect. It had Ashton Kutcher
It
in it.
wasn't a book. Yeah, I remember that movie. It wasn't the book. It was about the book that I read. It was really how, because it was really how the porn industry shifted, like the changes in the porn industry and how it went from being something very taboo to being something very mainstream.
Hmm.
And it was just like, and it all dealt with this one guy who had an idea. It's that one guy who had an idea and
Always.
just like changed. Always that one guy who had an idea. And it was done by this journalist. So it was really like, it's just this book. And it was an audiobook. That was the last audiobook I read. Then now I'm starting those two audiobooks, the one you recommended, Ordinary Men, and then the crazy Hunter S. Thompson. I can see Johnny Depp's obsession with somebody who was just so out there. Now, I don't know if Johnny Depp got this. He probably didn't get the 1960s Hunter S. Thompson because by that time he had done all of these drugs, right? So he probably got a shell of what the original Hunter S. Thompson was. Um, but he did his
Yeah.
funeral like Johnny
He
Depp
shot
did.
the ashes out of a cannon.
Yeah, 'cause that's what Hunter S.
Yeah.
Thompson wanted. I would have loved to sat down and just talk to you know, th people don't have intellectual dialogue
No.
anymore. Like, not in the sense of, like, not in the sense of having a conversation with somebody like Hunter S. Thompson or having a conversation with somebody like James Baldwin, right? Having conversations with people who really knew what they were talking about, were experts in the subject. I guess you can say that, and that we're debating, you know, I just feel that it's not that anymore. Like there's people aren't having conversations like that. Maybe
Well,
they're doing it at home,
I'm
but
sure some people are,
in
right? Like
television.
the introverts primarily.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, when you have those conversations, like every time somebody like Jordan Peterson opens his mouth, right? Although lately he's on and then he's off, because I didn't really like Jordan Peterson or those folks that are having like intellectual conversations with other people. Um,
The intellectual
yeah,
dark
I
web.
just felt like
That's what it's called.
I feel that the I feel like the art of discussion, of discussion is kind of like lost because people, like I said before, take snippets of what you say and contrive it for their own agenda, and people aren't going to spend the time to look at that. I've always felt that right now we're living in the dark ages of information. We have so much information out there, but because we have so much information and little time to research it and digest it, we're not even getting truthful
Hmm.
information. And I think that's a very sad place to
Well,
be.
people don't care to research either. a majority of the population doesn't
Yeah.
care to research. They don't want to know. That's so interesting to me because, like, I want to know everything. Like, I feel there's not enough time to read and learn all the things that I want to learn in a day. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
I love information. Like, I want all the information from the
Mhm.
universe right in here. Like, I just want it. But
Mhm.
a lot of people don't. They don't want to care. They're happy in their blissful little world.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with living the SpongeBob SquarePants lifestyle, right?
Yes,
Like,
I mean, if
I
that's what you
mean,
want to
you
do,
live in a pineapple. Yeah, I mean, you live in a pineapple under the sea and you're happy. You work at Krabby Patty with a horrible boss, but you're but he's
but
happy.
if you're not going to be
I mean, the
informed,
guy's
then
happy.
should you be allowed to make decisions for the rest of the population?
That's a good question. If you're not going to be informed, should you be making decisions for the rest of the population?
Right? Because a lot of people don't vote. They don't want to vote. They don't want to care about the system.
No.
So essentially, that is making decisions for the other population because you're not putting
Yeah,
your 2 cents in. You know,
because they feel that the systems, I think that there's people that don't vote because they
doesn't
feel it
matter.
doesn't
Sure,
matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter to them. It's not going to impact their life. Things are going to be the way they're going to be,
and
and
that's how we get
that's
the way
it.
we are.
Get or they say that the things are stacked
Sure,
against them, right? Because if you think about it,
gerrymandering is a
like,
real thing. Yep.
yeah, but I mean, it's it's stacked against you. Like, even if you do have, when was the last time that you could say that maybe there's very little politicians, I think, right now who are really not in it for themselves, like, that are
Very few. Yeah, very few.
genuinely in there because I'm here to serve. Very
Yeah.
few. To your point, very few. So even if they are, it does to the point that it doesn't matter what party they're from. If they're not going to care, if they're not going to care about the people that they're serving or the people that they're representing, then it doesn't matter. They're going to sway with whoever. I mean, it's almost, they're going to sway with whoever pays them the most money or gives them the most money or whatever agenda that they feel they need to have. Because when you have to spend time calling your donors, and that's what representatives do. So and so's a big donor. He donated um
Yeah.
$30 million to your campaign, whatever. You have to call up Soros. Hey, how's it going? Hey, it's going good. Hey, what do you think about this? You know they're talking crazy to you. When people, here's the problem when you give people
Yeah.
money like that, they become beholden to
Yeah.
you. You owe them big money favors. So now you're on the phone, here you are, an elected official, and some billionaire's talking crazy to you, telling you, I want this done. Figure it out.
Yep. We really need to
And
take the money out of
that's,
politics. Like, we need to get rid of the
I
electoral
agree.
college, make one vote be one
For
vote.
sure.
Like, you can't just go,
For sure.
like, everybody's vote matters. Everybody's vote should be an equal
Well,
vote. It doesn't matter. Like,
you know why they did
oh
that,
yeah,
right?
because slaves.
Because that's what the
Yeah.
states, yeah, because of the states. It goes back to the states wanting equal representation because they felt that it wouldn't be fair. Because honestly, if you look at the population as a whole and where they're at, if you're in the middle of the country where there's very sparsely populated, I'm gonna throw in maybe like Oklahoma, then if it's whatever they vote doesn't necessarily matter. Whatever middle America votes doesn't necessarily matter. The states that are going to make the decision are going to be Texas,
Right.
California, Florida, and maybe New
But it
York.
shouldn't be like
So
that
even
now,
if we
though.
did, but that goes back to state sovereignty, right? So that's the way we were set up. Like, this is sovereignty of the state.
Well, as far as
Um,
like
but
president and vice
it's
president, right? Like, they're
yeah,
going to be the leader of the entire country. So everybody's vote should be
Yeah.
one vote. There should be no electoral college. Like popular vote should win. Period. End of story. Like
Yeah.
no white gerrymandered states and Republican states should not get more votes by electoral college than other states. If we just made everybody's vote count and the popular vote is who actually won, then you have who the majority voted for. Right? That's how we've had two
Okay.
presidents now that have not been the majority vote. That's
Yeah.
not what the people wanted. And we still ended up with
Mm-hmm.
them because people
Yeah.
decided that's not what they wanted and they gave weight to more states. I mean, even in cities, right? Like, or in states, if you're voting for a governor of a state, again, he's going to be the governor of the entire state. It should be what the
Yeah.
majority of that state wants.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about maybe like city town hall type stuff, sure, I guess do it based off of your little town. But again, shouldn't it be based off of that little town and what the majority of that town wants? Or should it only be heavy weighted towards the conservatives? Because that's how the gerrymandered lines are set up. They're heavy weighted toward conservative outturn.
Yeah. Well, whoever's in power is gonna gerrymander them to whatever is convenient
Right. Which is why we shouldn't
to
even
that
have
group, right?
blocking off of any of that. Like, there shouldn't be like lines. One vote should be one vote, you know? If we're calling everybody equal, nobody's vote should weigh more than anybody else's vote. If we're trying to make everybody equal. But we're still not. That's the thing. Like we're still set up like the days when Black people were only 1/6 of the vote, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
their vote was not one vote, it was 1/6 of a vote or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know why my light.
To figure out what the best is going for their district. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. But I mean, we'll see what it's going to turn out to, or what's going to happen. I think people are going to go out and
I
vote.
hope so. Because while,
Um
it is kind of a rigged game, I mean, it's still worth going out and doing.
I just don't people are so it's so bizarre cuz people will say one thing to get elected and then go into office and different
Yeah.
do a completely different thing than what what you had anticipated them
Yeah.
to do.
First, we need to get through
And
this for
and it
sure. But then we need to fix what the other problems are.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, hopefully we'll get there soon. We'll just see we'll see what the next election brings. I mean, is Biden going to continue
I
to
hope
run?
not.
I don't
I hope
know.
not. They're going to lose if Biden runs again.
The Right now they say DeSantis from Florida.
Exactly. They're
DeSantis is one of those
He's
weird
going to lose to
they people
DeSantis.
love him. People love him or hate or don't like him.
Right.
Like he's one of those people like him and people don't like him. As a matter of fact, who did I hear? I heard one celebrity said that they would vote for him if they
Elon
ran.
Musk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go. Elon. Elon said that he would vote for him if he
Yeah.
ran.
Well, because look what the Democratic Party is doing to Elon.
No.
I mean, he wasn't even invited
You
to the
know,
EV conference, and he was like been head of selling electric vehicles. Like,
I don't understand how that politics like works. You would think that if you had regardless of somebody's political, see if it's and I got to work this carefully. If somebody's kind of middle of the road, maybe a little bit more conservative, but middle of the road, which I think most people are. I don't think people are extremes like that. I know there's a lot of liberals, but I think most people are reasonable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know why they would not invite Elon Musk. To your point, they have all these like green vehicles, but basically what he's saying is where he's going to put his money. That's the
Yeah.
reality of it.
Well, and he said, he's always voted for the Democratic Party because they were the nice party. They were the party of being nice to
Mhm.
people. And he was bullied his entire childhood and abused. And so, I mean, I can understand why he's voted for the party of nice, the party who says they care for the people. But if they put Biden against DeSantis, we're going to have another situation where people are like, I know I don't want Biden again, and the only choice is DeSantis. They need to find somebody new, somebody young or younger at least, who is
Mm.
more liked by all people. But they need to bring
Mhm.
a new face because I've seen so many people say, I mean, Biden hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot going. Yeah, I haven't even watched the. Yeah, yeah. I don't know where we're headed. I think everybody's kind of a bit confused. It seems like a lot of things happen at the same time that you're just kind of still reeling through the shock of everything. Like everything that has happened. It's just it's interesting, and all these cases that are going on,
Yeah.
right, that the Supreme Court's going to hear, that are creating changes to some of the things that were considered the law of the land, right, at that time.
Yeah. I mean, those
So,
judges need to be impeached. They straight up lied to get in. And if we don't do something about that, then that's all we're going to have is judges who say one thing but hold a different opinion, which is stupid because their opinion is not even supposed to matter. They're supposed to be unbiased in their rulings, and they're not.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they need to be impeached. They literally lied to get the job. They said it all. Roe stood as basically stood as law. It had been there for 50 years, they said. And to go, oh, I changed my mind. Like, yeah, sorry, as a Supreme Court judge, I don't think you get the right to just change your mind because we're not here for your mind, right? You're here to rule on law. And the cases that they're hearing have had no reason to be brought back up other than their choosing. They've had zero reason. There are no current
Well, they,
cases that have to do with
mm,
any of them.
yeah, they pick whatever they want to like rule on. Like, was a recent one was Vega with Miranda rights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, started reading that. I didn't finish it. I understand what the rationale was because certain cases carved out certain exceptions to Miranda, so it wasn't consistent. It wasn't
Yeah.
consistent. It was so I think they wanted to create some sort of
But now
consistency
they don't have to
with
read
it.
them at
Don't
all.
necessarily agree. I don't think that's 100% true. Let me finish reading the case and I'll get back to you on
Well, if
that.
they can't be sued for not telling them to you, it instills a precedent that they, in fact, don't have to tell you, right? Because there is no
B-
accountability for it now. So whether they read it or not, they can say, oops, I forgot.
There was some things, like, for example, if you blurted out something before the Miranda rights were read to you, they could still use that information against you. So there was certain, when you read the Miranda, and they had certain cases that kind of created certain exceptions to Miranda, it you had to create some sort of consistency. So it either was or it wasn't. I got to finish reading the court case. I know it went through all of them, and basically they said they can't sue you under a certain regulation. I can't remember what the number of the regulation was, but they can't use that to sue you for eliciting information um, from you. And in this particular case, the agent Vega solicited information from this gentleman, and they used the
Yeah, I
information,
saw it.
but he was found innocent in this case. He was found innocent in the case, and they used that information. And now he said, because you used that information and you didn't read my Miranda rights, I'm going to sue you. Right. And he did try to obviously went to the Supreme Court. And then they go in through what the court does in the beginning is go through the inconsistencies of Miranda.
Right.
And when they allowed, there was certain situations where they did allow the information to get through, even though the Miranda rights weren't read. So what it was my take. Now I haven't read everybody's opinion, but I think what they were trying to do is create some consistency around Miranda because of these exceptions. So we shall see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how they use it.
I'm curious to see how they're going to use it, and how, you have the right. But I mean, honestly, I don't think, like, if you're in a situation, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
Wait for my attorney to come in. Don't say anything. I always see those shows, the first 48, and you're like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. And here they go. Yeah, I did all of this. I did it. And then just like a signed confession, you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's over then. It's over. You really shouldn't say
I
anything. If somebody asks you, don't
I
say
saw
anything.
somebody created an app that literally you can just download and pay like $7.99 a month, and it's
hmm
lawyers 24/7, and you just have the app on your phone, and if you get pulled over, you literally just open the app and immediately you'll have a lawyer come up that will literally represent you right then.
Yeah. And what is he going to say? My client's not talking to
Right,
you.
but now you have a lawyer witnessing the entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is probably the way. I mean, I think for people, it's a certain level of safeguard. I mean, you saw that poor kid who that
Yeah.
off-duty police officer like kneed him in the
Oh yeah,
back, and the
I saw
mom
that
and
one.
the
Yeah.
dad were on there.
Boy,
Yeah.
let me
So of
tell you,
course, I mean,
I
it's,
would
it's
be livid if somebody did that to my kid. Livid.
oh yeah, the dad didn't do the talking. She did the talking, and she was like upset that this man grabbed this child, put a knee to the back, and he's like, "What did I do? You stole my kid's
It was
bicycle."
his
Like,
bike. It
what?
was the cop's bike.
Yeah, it was his.
And he
Yeah.
picked it up off the
Oh
ground
my
to stand
goodness.
it up because it was on the ground.
This, I, I don't know who they're allowing, what sort of training, probably minimal, and what sort of PTSD this guy must have been going through or
No.
something. Um,
This is people infiltrated in the police department who are racist and who have a complex that they can do whatever they want.
no. No.
That's straight up what it is. And I mean, reading that book, you'll see that that's literally how the movement started is they infiltrated the police departments with supremacists, basically. And a lot of those people ended up becoming part of the police battalion 101.
Yeah. Then there was also a way for them not to go to war. So I thought that was kind of interesting, that was kind of like either, even though they were utilized in war crimes, that one of the incentives was, oh, you don't get to fight in the front
Mm-hmm.
lines if you join the battalion. I mean, at least that's what I gathered from it.
Yeah, and they even
I
allowed them,
just,
like, if they said they didn't want to do killing, they would move them to another area doing other things. they were allowed
But
to say that they didn't want to do something, but a lot of them
yeah.
wouldn't because they didn't want to leave the other person, the people, to have to do it.
So bizarre. So it's always so bizarre, but I think when you look at tragedies like that throughout the world, all of these folks believe that they're doing a greater good. Like in their
Well, they
mind,
justify it.
it's
Yeah,
kind of
you have
like
to
this.
justify it.
Yeah, they justify it. In their mind, they're like, you have to crack a few eggs. I mean, that's the mentality of it. I don't agree with it, but when you look at when you start doing your research and in that dynamic, because they're not the only ones, like there's been tragedies like this in every country of the
Yeah. Well, look
world,
at how we're
right? If you
justifying
look,
what's happening in Ukraine. Like a lot of people are justifying what's happening there right now.
yeah,
And if you justify something like that and you let it go unchecked, well, then you're justifying for it to happen other places.
and it is. It is it's currently happening in other places.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've been
And
turning a blind eye to it,
yeah,
justifying letting it happen. And this is how we got
I mean,
where we are, where,
it's, it's happening in South
yeah,
America, it's
Africa,
happening in Europe, Africa. I mean,
Iran.
name a continent
Yeah.
that these types of things are happening. It's really sad. And you're right, the mentality is it's a group mentality where they're justifying it by saying, "Hey, it's a greater good." But in reality, they're committing these
Yemen.
atrocities.
Yeah.
And then when it's all said and done, it's like, okay, you just you just destroyed these people's
Hmm.
world. I don't know. I
This
mean,
you'll hear in there,
I
this one guy, he justifies killing the children because first his buddy would kill the mother. And his justification was that since the mother is now dead, there's no one to care for the child. I might as well kill it.
here's the thing. There's always somebody who draws the line, who's brave enough to say, "I'm not doing that. I'm out the room." Unfortunately, in the ones that stay back are the ones that don't draw the line.
You'll hear in that book,
You
people who draw the line just get moved to another area where they still have to do it.
yeah. You know, there's people that can get out of that a concept. They either leave the country or leave the situation or leave the state. If you don't want to do something, you didn't you have to be there's always somebody who's strong-minded enough to say, "I'm not doing it." I don't 100% believe. There's people that follow a group and then there's people that say no. And those people that say no typically don't last long in that environment. Like they'll get rid of
They
them
literally kill
or
them.
they'll end up
Yeah.
leaving. Yeah. If you can't, if you're strong and minded and said, "No, I don't want to do this," or "I don't agree with this," you're done. You're done. Or you find other ways like that guy from Schindler's List, right? Where he said he tried to protect his people as much as he could, right? Whatever I could, he worked, but he had to do. So there are people in I don't think I don't want to call them weak-minded folks, but
Some of the people who did
yeah,
the
there's
most
people.
killing were some of the most strong-minded people. But you'll hear
I
it.
don't
You'll hear
agree.
it in the book. And then if you also listen to the other video that I sent you, Becoming Evil, it is not
Yeah,
usually the people you think.
it's never the people that you think, but you always have to. I mean, there's people that are. I'm a strong believer that if you have a belief system that you carry with yourself and that belief system is within you, you can draw your own moral lines.
That talks about that.
And I've seen that. Like I've seen people that draw their own moral lines. I've seen people who have said, "Okay, I may be a drug addict. I may be the lowest of the low, but I'm not a killer
But that's where
and
they
I'm not
draw
a
the line.
rapist."
So they actually talk about the moral justification. I think it's in the video Becoming Evil. So people will
Mm-hmm.
redraw their own moral line to make it okay to kill that other person. Like their story is
But
that the Jews were going to take over, so that's why it was okay to kill them. They literally redraw
but
those
that was
moral
their
lines.
moral line. But those are certain people. Like, so I believe that there are people in any group, in any society, that say, no, I'm not doing that, whether they last long or not. There is a group of people that say that is not my morality, and I'm not going to adhere to that morality. And I don't care what you say, what you think of me. If you take whatever you want to take away with me, this is what I believe in, and I stand firm in that. I 100% believe that there's people in society that are like that. So even though they can justify that in themselves and say, I can justify doing all these things because granted, it's a study, right, of what these people mentality was and why they justified. I do think that there's people that'll say, I'm not doing this. I'm out of here.
Some,
And I think that there's groups of people in a lot of societies
yeah.
like that. I don't 100% agree that everybody agreed. Like, I mean, I just put that guy from Schindler's List as an example of somebody who said, I'm not
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah,
So,
there are some people who, like, after the first one they killed, they said they couldn't do it anymore, and so they moved them to other areas to do other things that were not necessarily killing people, but dealing with burying the bodies and stuff like that. But there, at the end of the book, is also another study that was done even after the fact that talks about it as well. And there's other studies that are in the Becoming Evil one that literally have to do with exactly what you're talking about. And it doesn't turn out that way.
mm-mm. It's yeah, you have got to be really strong in your moral beliefs and what to believe in to just like, so
But how strong, right? Like you're being put
there's
in this extreme situation where you feel like you are going to be murdered if you say, no, I don't want to do this.
then murder me. That's my whole thing.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
murder me. That's my mentality. There's people that are willing to die for a cause. Whether you agree with it
That
or not,
number
they're
is
willing to die for a
tiny
cause.
because you go back to
Well,
those moral lines that you're talking about, and people will
mhm.
redraw their moral line to go ahead and do what it is to be able to relive the life that they had beforehand when they get out.
But see, that to me is like, how should I put this? People who are willing to redraw the moral line to that extreme to hurt other people and justify
But
it.
they all did it, and they were all, that's why the book is called Ordinary Men. It was literally
Yeah,
ordinary men who redrew their moral lines to do exactly what they did. And it was not
yeah,
people, it was like there's a small group that they talk about who are like your Proud Boys who just would love to go out and do these things, but that's not the majority
yeah.
of the people who were in these battalions. It was
Well,
literally people like you and me.
no, of course, yeah. But what I'm saying is that and I'm going to give you examples of people who are willing to die. Like all those people who died in Cuba, like Che Guevara, who was assassinated, those are people that die for a cause. Like, I don't care if the US government agrees with what I have to say. I don't care if anybody else. This is my political ideology, right? And they believed in helping out the poor, right? And the oppression of the rich, whatever. Um, that the rich were oppressing the poor, right? But he believed for that idea. Those people believe the ideology so strongly that they're um, willing to die for it,
There are
right?
things worse than death, though.
Um, like what? I honestly, Michelle, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I would not be able to live with myself
Yeah,
if
yeah, I probably wouldn't either. I
if
mean,
I was allowed to, if I had to commit those atrocities. I couldn't live with myself. I would be like, if you're asking me to do this, I would rather die. Go ahead and get rid of me. now because I'm not doing that. I'm not built for that. I couldn't live for that. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that. I can see, well, they say, well, they're going to kill my children and they're going to kill this and they're going to kill that. That's where I think a belief in a higher power or a belief in an afterlife comes in, because with my religious belief, this is just a pass through. This is just a
Sure.
pass
Yeah.
through. We're just passing through. My when I die, it's like a second, it's like the second
Mhm.
life, whether you believe in life after death or not. But to me, when I hear them, well, could I see ordinary men doing that? Well, yeah, ordinary men do all kinds of atrocities. But I do feel that for some of those folks, to your point, that's how they justified it, right? They justified it, well, if I don't do it, my family, they'll kill my family. So it's between my family and somebody else.
Yeah.
Or to your point, they transferred them over and had them bury those people. But man, that would be like I'd run. Like I'd go without nothing. It didn't matter if I would be like, I'm leaving my house, I'm leaving everything. I'm running from that sort of
Yeah.
regime. Like the moment you see that happening, it's like run.
Well, I think that's easy to say, not
Run.
being in the situation.
I can tell you when I got divorced, I said keep everything.
Oh my
So I
God.
know
Girl,
that
we are
if
talking
I,
about men raping you
no,
and
if
torturing
I had to,
you.
I would try to find, yeah, I would find a way to get to, no, we're talking
That's
about
that is though. That is
we're talking about somebody facilitating that. Like if I were an ordinary man who was pushed to these extreme
right.
circumstances,
And
right?
what they're doing to people in
Like,
order to get them to do these things is they're seeing what's going on. They're seeing women
yeah,
being raped and tortured, and
yeah.
their friends the same. And there are things worse than death, right? There's torture.
Hmm. Yeah, they now I don't know if they went and tortured people in order to get them to do what they did, which it was a case. But in this, when I read not the beginning of the book, it seemed to me that they were talking about if they didn't want to do it, they were free to leave. But they didn't want to leave, but they were free
Right.
to leave.
That's
So
the
they weren't
beginning though.
forced to do anything.
You'll see.
Yeah, they weren't forced to
You'll
do
see.
anything. At that, yeah, he's like, in the beginning they weren't forced to do anything else. Which telling me that you weren't forced, I'd be like, deuces, guys, I'm out of here. Done. You know? And I guess to your point, when you talk about that happening, like you so there are some people that read the tea leaves early on and leave at the right time, you know, that know that something's happening and say, I don't like this vibe, so I'm out of here. And there's people that stay because they feel that it's not going to happen. And like, for example, Russia taking over, I didn't really think that that was going to happen. And then when
Mhm.
people who were there didn't, like the students, they didn't really think that that was going to happen. And lo and behold, it
Yep.
happened,
Because nobody thought
So
it
you
would
don't know.
happen and nobody did anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody thought it was going to
And
happen
what's happening
because,
there
I
is
mean,
literally what's happening in that book, Ordinary Men. Like they're literally just killing people. That's all they're doing. Just killing them, raping them, killing them, torturing them, cleansing.
and that's because those are the people that weren't able to leave. And what's funny is it not funny. It's
Yeah,
not
not
funny in the
funny,
sense,
but
but the people that
yeah,
aren't able to leave are um orphans. The orphans are children. The most vulnerable are always the ones left behind. Orphans, the elderly, the
yeah,
disabled. Because if you saw the picture, not the pictures, but the videos of people leaving, I mean, they were like leaving
yeah.
in droves trying to get out of there. And then when I heard that there was
Right. But
orphans,
to where? Where did they leave to? Towns closer, right?
they they left. No, they left the country.
Right, but where? Poland, right? A lot of them went to
Yeah,
Poland. Well,
yeah, a lot of them went to Poland.
the Germans literally went through Poland, and that's part
Hmm.
of what is on Russia's mind next.
Hmm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, you can run, but you're only going to run for a certain amount of time because they're coming for that too. Because that's literally what happened. And so, I mean, that would be foolish because isn't Poland part of NATO?
I don't know.
I think it is.
Good question.
I think Poland is part of NATO,
Yeah,
but
if Poland's part of NATO, then it'll be a whole different. It'll be a whole different thing then, like a whole
yeah.
different thing.
But will it though?
Because I think
Like, will it? They've already threatened multiple times and they've already flown drones over Poland.
I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to see how all of this pans out.
Especially if he has nothing to lose. Like, if he has blood cancer and he has nothing to lose, that's like the scariest thing ever. Having somebody who has nothing to
Yeah, but
lose.
people who have he's first of all he has probably the best doctors in his
Well,
country and
sure.
probably in the world, to be honest
They
with you.
say he's got
Probably the best
leukemia,
doctors
though.
in the
I
world.
mean,
People, I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research on leukemia, but there's people who've had leukemia for years,
yeah,
for years. So I don't know what the treatments are, or or some people who beat leukemia and then went into remission and got it again.
yeah,
Like it showed up again. So I don't know. I don't know. He's older
right.
though. He's not a young man. What is he?
Gotta be in his
70s,
70s,
maybe
probably.
60s? How old is he?
'69.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
He's older than I
And I mean, he
thought.
looks like he lost
Who
some weight.
knows? Guy. Not poor guy in terms of it, like just having a disease like that. It's
Girl,
got to be
did you
horrible.
just that poor guy? This is karma. That is
I just
karma.
thought it was about leukemia.
That is
You think?
karma.
I don't like to see anybody with those diseases. Yeah, but I mean, but your
Look at
point.
how you're
It's
redrawing your
he's doing
moral
all.
line right now. Like,
We're doing
sympathizing with
more
somebody
light. I
who's
just thought,
murdering millions of people.
now because he's
Like,
got,
what?
well, he's got leukemia. Well, what am I going to do? I mean, he's got leukemia. What am I going to say? Good? And it's just not in me. You know
Well,
what
I
I mean?
mean, you don't got to be like, oh, that's
Uh,
good. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
No, like,
karma.
yeah. Oh my
I'm
goodness.
spider.
That's a, yeah. Okay. So not poor. I'm neutral about the whole, let me rephrase neutral. Gosh, my goodness. Well,
Look how
maybe if he
easily you
didn't
just
have
sympathized with a
2 point,
very bad person.
you know, sympathize with a bad person. People are, I may not agree with what he's doing, right? But I mean, I'm not going to be like, you have a terminal illness, die. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? Oh,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know.
he's
For
got
me, it's
leukemia.
like a
That's
karma
sad.
thing. Like, dang, you're killing all these
Like,
people. Maybe it's karma.
yeah. Yeah, who knows, mate? I don't believe in karma. I don't, if I believed in karma, I guess you reap what you
Right, right.
sow,
That's
but I think
karma.
those with your
Reap what you sow
actions.
is karma. Like,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
interchangeably,
maybe reap
you know.
what he's sowing. Yeah, maybe he's reaping what he's sown. But gosh, that man's always been in like he's definitely, I don't know if we could call, is he a dictator, you would think? Would you call him a
Absolutely.
dictator? Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, he's a
Yeah, I
dictator.
mean, they've got state
I don't
run
know how this.
media. Nothing else is allowed in the country. They can only have what he says. Yeah, I mean, a straight dictator.
Yeah, oh my goodness, I don't know how this is gonna end.
And half of our
I just want this
Republicans
all
are
to be,
sympathizing with what he's doing. So it's like,
you know, I don't know why they're sympathizing. I do not like the idea of people dying in something, and I don't even know for what. At the end of I'm like, what, for what do they
Honestly,
want? What resources do they
based
want?
off of like
I don't
reading
understand.
the stuff about like what happened with the Soviet Union and what happened with Germany, it literally
Hmm.
is like he's cleansing. He is like cleansing the Jews and the homosexuals and all of the things that the West has caused there is what he's doing. And honestly, I think his idea is to move on to the next area to cleanse.
So that so when you're talking about that, it was very interesting. What was that basketball player? Was her
Grimes,
name Brittany?
or not
Yeah,
Games Griner.
Griner. Yeah, going like it's almost interesting that she's getting they're giving her what 10
Yeah,
years
for some
for having some
CBD or some shit.
pra- drug paraphernalia, was
Yeah,
it?
she had some cartridges that had, I guess, hash.
Oh my goodness, why would you do that?
That's
Like
true.
you go to a country that you're not is very conservative. You're not from, right? And is going I mean, why would you even risk it?
Especially when they're
Cuz
fighting with the US right now.
yeah, and I'm not saying that they're not using her as an
Sure.
example because I
Yeah,
really do think that they
absolutely.
are
Yeah.
using her as an example. But man, and he's saying Biden's going to try to get her out. I don't
No.
know.
I honestly, I don't think there's anything they can do for her.
I don't think so either. I think she's going to be like stuck there for 10 years and hopefully she comes out of it fine. Hopefully she's treated well because who knows? Because you're right. And you can't, those countries, you remember that one kid, young kid who went, now granted, this is, but went to, was it North Korea? And he took down a poster and then they beat him down so bad that when they did return him to the family, he was like a vegetable. He ended up dying after that.
Vaguely.
Was it? Who was in? Was Kim Jong Un? I always
North Korea.
forget what side it is. North Korea, yeah. That he was just like, you just have to. You just you can't go around to different countries and act like you would in your country.
Mm-mm.
Or just because and you know how they're legalizing marijuana in a lot of these states.
Yeah, yeah, you can't take
Like you
stuff like
can't
that to countries like Russia, North Korea. Like, that's not smart.
no, not, and even then, like even like places maybe like South Korea, right? Or even places now I don't know what they're even places like China. Let's say you're going to go
Yeah,
visit
it's
China,
just not smart
or
to take
even
to
places
another
that
country that's
US.
not going to be selling it
No,
there.
exactly. And people are just taking those things. I mean, she made a very grave mistake, and 10 years is a lot of time for that.
Yeah,
Man, my heart goes out to her and her family because I don't even like. I'm pretty sure her parents are scared right now. She's a she's a young woman.
yeah. There's no telling what's happening in
You
there
know,
in that jail.
I mean, she looked healthy. She didn't look like they were beating her or anything.
Yeah, I'd imagine that might not be the smartest thing if that happened because that would start. I don't know what that would start. I do think it would be a very bad thing and probably not wise for Russia to do. I don't know what our military would do about it, but
I mean, she's a basketball player, unless they wanted to create point. But he's done a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, what was that one? He wrote a book. I see his face that they had him almost poisoned.
oh, his opponent. It was who they literally
Yeah,
voted for, and Putin put him in jail.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or that billionaire who started talking against Putin, like one of the
Oh, he's
oligarchs.
killed like
And what did Putin?
7 oligarchs.
There was an oligarch that was talking nonsense about him, and guess what Putin did? Took all his money, put him in
Yep.
jail. So he does things right, but I mean, we'll see. we'll see how this all pans out. I don't know, Michelle. We ended on Ukraine, which my heart goes
Yeah,
out to all those people and
all
all those
crazy
folks
things.
that, those folks that stay behind. There are people in Ukraine who are staying behind to help, the orphans, the folks that are disabled, those folks that aren't able, the elderly that aren't able to leave the country on their own.
And there's no hope
There's
for
people
them.
right there that are standing behind, risking their life in their death, life, right, and being tortured and in doing all of those things to protect those people. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think there's any hope
it's a
for
horrible, it's a
the
sad thing.
young and the old and the women at all. I mean, based off of just reading history stuff, like I don't feel like there's any hope for them. I think they're some of the first ones that they just do what they do, you know?
Yeah, there was this one guy who was like I think he was a rabbi, and he decided to stay because there was this one older lady who was a Jewish lady, and she was an elderly lady, and obviously she couldn't be moved, and he said, "We're staying here for her." And I mean, that to me just like really, there's still people in this world that are willing to die for the right thing. And he was willing to do that to protect that lady. And I'm sure that there's women that are staying back in the orphanages to take care of those kids that weren't able to be moved. So I don't know. I just hope this is all over soon, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. It's about that time, Michelle.
All right.
Dunzo. All
Go
right.
ahead and subscribe and plus push the follow button so you know whenever we drop our next one. Have a good night.
Good night.